Hey, welcome to another episode of the InNOLEvation Mindset podcast, powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. I am Mark McNees, your host, and in studio today, we have the founder and CEO of Grova Creative, G. Williams. Hey, thanks for coming in today, G. This is your second time on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm good, and thanks for introducing me as G.
Absolutely. I know you like to go by G, so
I do.
There you go. So a lot has happened since the last time you were on the podcast. You've won the JMI, the Jim Moran Institute 30, the fastest 30 growing companies of Jim Moran Institute clients and things like that. So we're going to talk about that, and you are coming up on a big anniversary of 10 years. So we're going to talk about that journey and everything. But before we get started, could you just tell us about what your business does, what Grova Creative does, and what kind of clients you serve, and just a little bit about your company?
Yeah, I would love to. So we are a creative marketing firm. As you said, 10 years is rolling up real fast, so really excited about that. We focus on everything marketing. So that's digital, advertising, media buying, storytelling, websites, social media, graphic design, brand strategy, campaign strategy. It's honestly much easier for me to say we focus on everything marketing, minus public relations and crisis communications. We don't really touch those two areas, but everything else, if you're looking to figure out how to help your company grow, that's where we succeed and excel.
All right, great. So 10 years is the magic number for companies for staying power. It's actually, you probably know this, but just for our audience, if they don't know this, 50% of companies go out of business in the first year, and they run out of money, they run out of traction and everything. So that 1 year obviously is a big milestone. 3 years is a big milestone. And 10 years, statistically speaking, is if you have a company for over 10 years, that it has real staying power, that you've really created something of substance. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're technically still a couple months away from 10 years, but you're right. It's right there. And I don't anticipate anything crazy happening where we won't get there. But I'm very excited for 2026 because we have a lot of things in the works to celebrate those 10 years.
Well, do tell. Share with us some of those things that you're planning on doing.
Yeah, so we're redoing our website. That won't be launched until 2026 in celebration of our 10-year anniversary. I really want us to focus on a website that puts, I don't want to call us the new Grova because we're not really new, but these last 2 years, I refocused the company, and I really want a website that reflects our new focus and our new brand strategy of who we are. And we're planning a big party. I can't give away everything because we have to give the element of surprise, right. But we'll have some really fun tchotchkes, some unique stuff to give out, some celebrating old clients, new clients, people that helped us get to where we are. Because as when you own a company and are running a company, it takes a village, and I did not get here by myself.
Right.
So I want to recognize everyone that essentially helped Grova grow and make sure that they know that they're loved and appreciated, and I'm very blessed to have their support. But yeah, so 26 is just going to be the year of, let's say, reintroducing Grova, and we have a couple other things that we're going to be doing fourth quarter next year, so it's a whole year away, but I'd be yelled at by some staff members if I gave away all the secrets.
All right. We'll definitely not give away all the secrets. A lot has happened in 10 years in your industry. There's been I would say the full-blown like social media movement and influencers and AI and all this. Could you tell us a little bit about just how you've had to pivot and how you've changed and with the changing times to keep relevant and developing your ideal kind of customer and what your value proposition is?
Yeah, so it's been exhausting, but I'll have to say in a fun way. So 10 years ago, if you told me I'd be running my own company, I probably would be like, nah, I don't believe it. And I might have double thought about starting my own company 10 years ago if I knew the marketing realm would be changing so much. Because when you think about it, the last big change we had was in early 2000s when social media came out. And before that, really the big change was essentially the internet. And then before that was like making television more accessible. So there hasn't been a lot of crazy changes, but in the last 7 years, it's been quite a challenge to keep up with everything. But at the end of the day, it's what I do. So I dive right in and we get it done. So it's funny that you asked this question because I talk a lot about this topic. It's one of the biggest requests what the marketing trends are when I go out and speak to the community. And really the biggest change lately, of course, everyone's talking about is AI. And it's funny because I have to remind a lot of people AI is not really new. Right. AI has been around for a long time. And actually in the marketing realm, we've used it quite a bit. Think about email sequencing or chat bots. Like that was all essentially AI. But it's become more readily available and accessible for the common public, I guess I should say, lack of a better phrase, for the public. So a lot more people are interested in it, and we're able to take that open source code and manipulate it for different avenues to help make our work lives better. So when people ask, like, how do we use AI in our everyday agency, it's not so much how we use it now, it's how we pivoted in using it more so because we've always used it as long as I've been around in marketing for past probably 15, 20 years. But now we're able to speed up our process. So for example, if someone would like a video, 3-minute brand video, we would have to pencil by hand or do illustrations to show the storyboard to help the client understand what we're thinking for each play-by-play of the video. Now we could just go to Midjourney, type in our prompts really quick, and then throw them in a storyboard, and now we can help the client get into our world faster. And we're not spending hours on end trying to draw illustrations for a storyboard. It can take us now 45 minutes. Right. So we can focus more on the fun part and the video production, the scripting, props, and talent, and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, people come to us, they trust us that we're staying on top of the trends. Another thing that we've done to stay on top of that is I'm really big on continuing education with my team. So they all have dollars that they can spend to get education on what's up and coming, or to do tutorials, or to do classes, workshops, go to conferences. And it's a requirement actually at our agency. I'm constantly being like, hey, you haven't signed up for something yet. Is any of these interest you? Or what would you like to learn? Or is there an academy we can put you through? Because I find that if we're not investing in our people, right, your company is going to suffer. And also they're going to suffer in some sort of way because they're not growing as not only a professional, but as an individual. So I guess the long answer I just gave you how we pivoted, but the short answer is making sure we invest in education, investing in using it to tweak what we do internally. But at the end of the day, the product we put out is 100% original.
Thank you for sharing that. So you're talking about tools and using the tools and talking about marketing trends and things like that. And I'm trying to think back over the past 10 years. So we're going back to 2016, 10 years ago. And I'm not sure how big influencer marketing was 10 years ago and different marketing trends that have come up. As you look at where we are today in October 2025, where do you see trends emerging? How do people cut through the noise and all the content that's being put out through podcasts and social media and short form and long form? And there's still print media. And where do you see the trends going, and how do you help your customers pick the right platforms to get their message out?
Yeah, that's a very great question. I'm going to start with, you had asked specifically on influencer marketing. So I love this question because in 2016, influencer marketing was up and coming and it was pretty popular, but it was more in macro. And if you're not familiar with macro, that's 1 million or more followers. Okay. And so a lot of companies were turning to technically more celebrities, right, who ended up in the influencer space, and then slowly actual influencers were rising in very niche areas. where influencer marketing has gone, it's now more micro influencers. And why that has changed, and I think a big reason for that is because of COVID. And after COVID, people were craving authenticity and realness. And I think there's a disconnect a lot with the influencers who have 50 million followers, 100 million followers, because it comes off more as selling and not authentic. And we actually have found, and a lot of marketers as well have found, that when we partner with micro in very niche influencers, and that can be anywhere from 15,000 to 100,000 followers, or essentially anyone under 1 million, they tend to do much better because they have a very loyal following that trusts them, and they already have that trust. And because they're more authentic and more themselves, I think that it's much easier for them to bring a product or a service or to partner with a company, and they make it more natural. But so that's been fun to watch influencer marketing change, because now there's a pool of more young people able to make money, because you don't need to have 1 million followers. Yes, having 1 million followers helps, but if you're very hyper focused on a very specific area and you have a very good loyal following, you're going to make some money. For example, there's a woman called Portia Taylor. She owns Black Girls Ride. It's a motorcycle magazine. She went to social media and was able to convert her magazine subscription followers to social followers. And she has a combined, I think, about 75,000 influencers. But she makes a lot of great money from motorcycle companies who are trying to get specifically Black women riders more interested in riding, and they lean on her. And she tells people about rally. She tells people about motorcycles coming out. She tells people about a jacket, and they fly off the shelves because she has that trust from her audience. Another trend that's changing is, you probably don't want to talk about this, but podcasting.
No, I want to hear about this.
Yes. So there was a time where a lot of companies were running towards podcasting because it was a really great lead generation. Now that shift has focused, and podcasts are not great at getting leads, but they're really good at letting people in to your company and understanding who you are and humanizing your brand. And so a lot of companies are now using their podcast as an added value element, where people can get to know you outside of the product or service that you sell. And it gives them an opportunity to be authentic in front of their prospects and current customer base. And so I love that, because now when you think of, there's about 500 million listeners out there nationwide, and I don't even have the number off the top of my head of how many podcasts are out there. But I think that because of that shift, people are really putting a lot more time into their podcast to make sure that they are reaching the audience in a way that doesn't feel fake or salesy. And people like entertainment as well. So when you can entertain and educate at the same time. So if your podcast is coming out, which I know this is not your podcast, but anyone listening who's thinking about starting a podcast, don't think about it in a way of selling. It's actually a really hard barrier of entry into podcasting, which I'm sure you probably would understand, but you've done a phenomenal job growing this. So congrats on this amazing product that you have put together over the years. But a lot of people who come to me and say, hey, do you want to start a podcast? I'm like, okay. I don't encourage it until you have the first 8 episodes written and thought out. Because podcasting is, as you know, about consistency. It's about showing up real. And you have to be prepared, because it takes a long time to get followers, and it takes a long time to get a loyal following. But yeah, so when it comes to trends, the biggest changes right now that we're seeing is influencer marketing, podcast marketing, and the third one just escaped me, but we can sit here and talk about social media all day, because social media keeps shifting, because the generations that we're focusing on is shifting. Marketers are actually spending a lot more time now on millennials and Gen Z generation, where we expect that, right? The Gen X generation is naturally falling out of the focus, baby boomers, unless you have a product that's specific to them. I don't want people to think, oh, we never should advertise to Gen Xers or baby boomers. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying in general, overall, the focus of audiences have now been a target of millennials, the Gen X generation, and slowly alpha starting to come up in terms of people promoting to them.
Wow. As far as like micro influencers and things like that, I would, is there, how do you find these micro influencers? Or is there I'm sure there's like a service or something that they sign up and say, hey, I have this many followers. And it seems like it'd be a tedious process though, especially with a lesser known influencer, right? That most people like don't know, and you're diving in and just making sure that their credibility is there and that they're not going to do anything that embarrasses the brand and things like that. How have you navigated that as a company to help your clients?
So there are platforms where you can go and try to pair up with influencers, because a lot of them have managers as well. Not everyone does, but some do. So it just really comes down to what your goals are for your client and how you attack that. So if we, for example, had a client who was trying to get in the anime space, I'm making this up. I know nothing about anime. Nothing. This is why it's a great example, because if I had a client come to me and say, hey, we really want to get into anime and target people who are into anime, my first thing would be like, okay, we'll go to those platforms and see, are there any influencers that are in the anime space? But honestly, the best place to go is to start going where the anime people are and start asking them like, hey, who do you follow? Or who do you consider like a big influence in your space right now? And talking to them, and then figuring out, okay, do they have a manager? Can I get through them through this platform? Can I reach out to them directly? It's not really a problem, but every influencer and how you reach out to them is very different. So it's hard for me to say this is what you need to do exactly. The bigger ones, yes, they'll have managers, they'll be on the platforms, but that's not always the right move to go with a bigger influencer. So unfortunately, you got to roll up your sleeves and do some research and figure out who is influential in that space. And when you can find the platforms of people who are into anime, you're going to eventually roll upon that and be able to make decisions on how to move forward with the right influencers.
So when I was asking you, cutting through the noise, especially in the future, do you feel the two, like social media and podcasting, is going to be growing as an important tool for companies in the future? Or do you see something else on the horizon coming? Is there something else that is working? It's interesting, like when I was coming up and starting my business, there was internet, but there wasn't really social media and billboards, radio ads, things like that, which I'd like to get your take on that, how effective that is now. It just seems like there's so many different ways to spend your marketing dollar, and trying to figure out the correct marketing mix for your client. It seems, because marketing is expensive, and it just seems like, wow, like how do you do that? And so how do you do that? And what do you see any emerging just kind of power player kind of platforms or avenues for people to get their message out?
Yeah. To answer your question about social media and podcasting, yes, they're both technically on the rise. How we use them is changing. With social media, what's popular depends on the generation you're trying to go after. So Gen Xers and baby boomers, 100% Facebook. Yes, you'll find a few on TikTok or Instagram, but if you want to maximize your marketing dollars, go to Facebook for that generation. Millennials, they tend to do better on Instagram and a little bit of TikTok, depending on what you're promoting. Also, they're really big on LinkedIn. The Gen Z generation is actually very heavily invested in LinkedIn, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, job searching, internships. And the reason that it became so popular is because they had the one-click application. And Indeed was struggling for a long time against that because they couldn't compete. The Gen Z generation they like when things are quick and easy. So with a one-click apply, how can you beat that? Now Indeed has that, but there was a time they didn't. In terms of how video is growing, we used to say content is king. Now we say video is king and content is queen. Now, when I say content, technically video is content, but I'm talking about more writing and scripting instead of actual just using it as a general term content. So During COVID, video went to long form was very popular because people had time. We were stuck at home doing nothing. We were okay with watching a 3, 4, 5-minute video, even a 10-minute video. And that's when Facebook episodes, like shows on Facebook, grew in popularity because we now are fine sitting there watching a 20-minute video, and because it's easily accessible. Pre-COVID, short form video was more popular. As you've probably heard a few times, I hate to say this, but research has proven that our brains, we're like goldfish. Like we have 6-second memory like goldfish. We're like, ooh, squirrel. So that's why short form was popular. COVID made video long form popular. Now it's split. And it really comes down to your target demographic and what you're trying to go after and the platform you're using it on. YouTube, great platform for long form video. Instagram, TikTok, short form video. So those trends have stayed. It's just now dependent upon platform. You asked about billboards. Yes, billboards still work. Not in all cities, not in all counties or states, but in Tallahassee, yes, they work. They work in places like Atlanta, New York, when you can be creative. It's the same thing, Miami. So how we approach billboards depends on the areas that we are. So in Tallahassee, yes, you can get a simple billboard and it would be effective for certain industries, not all. But if we had a client who's, I want a billboard in Atlanta, we dang sure need to sit down and think about how can we make this unique so it stands out against the 1,000 other billboards that are around that city. Right. And that could be as simple as getting the right model. It could be as simple as making the right headline that's funny, catchy. You don't always have to come up with some $100,000 great plan to be effective. I'm sorry, I forgot what the other question was.
Just is there anything that you see emerging like podcast or
yes.
social media influencing?
Yes. So the biggest thing that's happening right now in marketing that we as creatives and marketers are just like in a standstill and waiting for Google to make a decision is SEO search engine optimization, basically. And why that has changed so much is because of AI. So I don't know if you've noticed, but Google has added AI summary, and we as marketers hate it because it defeats the purpose of organic SEO. Because when someone would go and they would say, how do I fix a leaky roof? We have a blog that we wrote on our client's website that would pop up. And that person would click on that blog and they would read how to fix a leaky roof. So now we're getting website visits and buy-in just from an article that deems helpful. Now, Google will scan the internet and scan all these websites and give you a summary. And it's going to give you the summary up top over the publishers. So there's no point for the person to now click on your website.
Oh, interesting.
So now we're losing organic SEO, and we have to rethink how are we going to redo this organic SEO. And why we're in a standstill is because you also have to think of AI search. People are now going to ChatGPT and searching what are the best roofers in Tallahassee.
Right.
And you have to pivot your metadata to make sure that's happening and that it'll pull on AI search. So we don't have an answer yet. There's essentially, like I said, we're waiting on Google because Google has a lot of changes up and coming that have been supposed to be up and coming for quite some time, but they say they're going to do it now. So another big thing that's happening is third-party cookie data is going away. Now, why that's important is because we use that third-party cookie data to help with research and data to help us understand how to better market to who you're trying to go after. Third-party data is much easier to get a hold of than first-party data. And the difference is first-party data is you're going directly to the source. So, for example, if I put a pixel on a client's website and we're now grabbing information, IP address, times that they go to the website, what pages they're looking at, that's considered first-party data. But if someone goes to another website and they're doing something similar to our client, we can no longer now grab that information and try to figure out profiles. We only have direct party data. which, in the era of privacy data laws, which that's another rabbit hole that we don't need to go down today, but that's another big thing that's happening across the US. And we as advertising people, we would prefer a federal law on privacy data.
Okay.
But right now, each individual state is allowed to come up with their own. And it started about 2, maybe 3 years ago, this started happening. And at the time, there was 4 states who came out and announced their privacy data laws. California, I think, was first. Then I can't remember in order, but it was Colorado. I think it was West Virginia or Virginia, one of those, I can't remember. And one more state I'm missing. Once they came out, other states started piggybacking off of their privacy data laws. And now I want to say there's probably about 16 or 17 states that have their own laws. But if you think about it, we as an agency design a website for someone in California. We now have to make sure that these 16 other states that someone might go to the website that we're following all of these states' individual privacy data laws. California is taking it to a point where they're fining people who violate their privacy data laws. And the average fines, I believe, if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I've followed up on this, was about $7,000 per violation.
Oh, wow.
So if you're in Florida and you're an agency who does a website for someone in California and you don't know all the privacy data laws for that state, you're in trouble. So that's another big trend that's coming. Like I said, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole because I can get very political and I don't want to go that route. But right now I'm actually working with people and legislators to try to get a federal law for privacy data so that it's simpler, not only for agencies and boutique agencies and in-house teams, but so it's simpler for our clients so they don't have to worry about it.
Okay. So I want to pivot here, and we have obviously this Jim Moran College at Florida State University, and we do have a lot of students who are trying to start their businesses and things like that. What is your best advice for an entrepreneur who doesn't necessarily have a full-fledged marketing budget yet? Like, what are some key things you think an entrepreneur needs to do to establish their brand?
Yeah, so my favorite phrase that I like to say is, if you market to everyone, you market to no one. And why I like to say that is because I think general marketing has disappeared. General marketing used to be like we would throw a wide cast net and hopefully we catch some fish. No, we're not doing that anymore. Now, if you don't have a huge marketing budget, you're starting up your business, that's okay. The dollars will come. But at the very beginning, remember that. Try not to market to everyone. Think about who your target audience is. Are there free spaces that you can enter where those audiences are to get your name out there? It's really important that you understand that you have consistency, not just in how you introduce your business, but in your elevator pitch, how you look, how you sound. So my advice would be, think about consistency, stick to it. Don't be afraid at the beginning, especially, that you're going to have to make some changes and be flexible and nimble. That's okay. We've all started businesses, and I look back and I'm like, yeah, I probably should have not been so hard-headed and pivoted when I should have pivoted, and I didn't. And I pivoted late, still did it, but I did it late, and that cost me not only money, but unnecessary time, and I could have been further along. But yes, so consistency, don't be afraid to be flexible, and find the spaces where your people are instead of just trying to throw things out there generally.
Okay, thanks for that. Going back to the AI question, or not really even AI question, what do you think any platforms or websites, how people use websites have changed drastically since websites became a thing? It used to be like an information gathering kind of tool, and everybody needed one, and then more interactive and things like that. What's your take on the future of websites and the need for companies to have websites versus a social media presence? And do you ever see websites not being very important anymore for a company?
That is a really great question. Website trends keep changing, but I don't foresee websites being obsolete in the future. I agree with how we use them has changed, even with these SEO standstill. Right now, there's not a lot of talk about websites and how that could be affected in the future beyond SEO search. I think that in my experience, the only thing I can think of that would change drastically on websites would be the amount of content. I think that content over time will be less on websites, and getting people to not so much study your website, but to pick up the phone or call or fill out the fill form or message you on Facebook. I can, in a way, foresee social media overtaking websites in order of importance. But when I look back at a survey actually that HubSpot did in 2024, websites were still pretty high on the list of what people use for their marketing.
Really? Higher than social media?
Social media was number one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then it was video, websites, and I can't remember the other one, but yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So you're coming up on your 10th anniversary, and can you just take us through the evolution of how your client base, like who you used to serve in year 1 and 2 versus who are your ideal clients, who needs to come to Grova, and who are you now, and who do you serve best? Who's your ideal customer?
Yeah. Oh, year 1 and 2. That's crazy to think about. Yeah. So back in the early stages of Grova, I ran the company more like a freelancer. So I actually worked a lot with other agencies, and I'm not going to say who, but a lot of regional agencies, and I was a design freelancer. The reason that we changed to a full service agency was because I used to be a designer. I'm not anymore, but I was designing for too many agencies and I needed help, and I didn't want to tell anybody no. So I eventually hired an intern to help deal with the clients that weren't the agencies. So I had some non-agency clients, but most of my clients back then were really small. I probably charged like $30 an hour. I'm like so ashamed to say that. Oh my gosh. I actually don't really remember what I charged, but I remember if a client spent $13,000 with me for the entire year, I'd be like ecstatic. Yeah, they're a great client. And they were for where I was back then. But now we've graduated to where clients are paying us $13,000 a month. And that's crazy to look back at, like $13,000 in a year. And I'd be like, oh yeah. I'm sorry, I was in the Navy. That was like a Navy call. So over time, I think our clients have shifted from I guess like local, then more regional. It went back to more local. Now we're more regional and national with local clients as well. So who we served back then and what we did for them was strictly creative. And because that was my capabilities. I was a creative director, graphic designer. That's what I did. I did UI, UX design, and a lot of print work for clients and agencies. And then now we're full service. So we do everything from storytelling, messaging, websites, media buying, full service campaigns, logo designs, graphic design, video. But that was not us in year 1, 2, and probably not even year 3. I think we did change our name. We changed our name officially at the end of 2017, early 2018, because it used to be Giovanna Design, because it was just me.
Right.
And then when I hired my first intern and then hired that person full time, I was like, yeah, it just doesn't make sense to be called Giovanna Design, but also no one could spell it. So all those who are out there looking for marketing advice, do not put a name out there that no one can spell.
I tell my students that all the time.
and also abbreviations, because people do not remember abbreviations. Right. But so now I'm pretty proud of where we are. We're still not where I would like to be, if I'm being 100% honest, but you've probably interviewed a million CEOs. Are we ever happy like where we are? I don't know.
No, I don't. I think that's inherent in CEOs. I think you always that's what drives you, right? The opportunity to do more of what you do. Do you have a ideal client kind of base? Are you working with primarily in certain industries, or is it across the board, or is it more just like the size of the client? Like, where's your unique value proposition and who do you serve?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that makes us unique. And I remember a business coach once told me that I would never scale my business to a point that I'd be happy unless I picked a specific industry to go after. And I remember in my early days of being a CEO, I'm very involved in something called the American Advertising Federation. I'm actually on the national board now. But back then I was part of the district, which was the state of Florida in the Caribbean. And so I knew a lot of other CEO agency owners. And I had conversations with them. One in particular, I remember I was talking to her. She's a CEO of an agency in South Florida. They only do car dealerships, used car dealerships. That's it. No other clients. That is her niche. And yeah, she's been able to scale. Yeah, they make more money than we do. And I'm not going to hate because girl got it. She figured it out. But she has a lot of pain points in her agency. And one is very high turnover. There's no loyalty. The culture is not what she would like it to be. But also, I don't agree with how they run the business. And the reason I'm not saying the name is because I'm going to say this. So what they do is they pretty much just reskin the same campaign for every client and charge the same. And that's hard when you do that to keep creatives happy. Creatives want to be challenged. They want to try new things. They want to design new things. Also, creatives are very in tune with their emotions. So back probably about year 5 of my business, I started to think about that question. Do I want to get in a space that's niche? Because at the time I had a lot of construction clients. Okay. So I'm like, we can be the construction agency. But I was a creative once. I still was designing a little bit back then. So I knew that if I went down that path, that I would have high turnover. And that was not something I wanted to look forward to. I really wanted to focus on building Grova's culture. I really wanted to have diversity in clientele and industry so that we're consistently challenged and we consistently learn new things. So I decided that I was going to have a niche in services. And we are 100% known for brand strategy. And all of our clients that walk through that door come to us for brand strategy. And we end up converting them, or we develop their brand and they stay with us and we work on other things for them. So I think it's worked so far. Like I said, I haven't scaled as fast as other agency owners that I know, but I'm okay with that because I have a very good, actually, I don't even want to say good. I don't even know if I can swear on this podcast, but I'm going to say bad A team. And all of them are very loyal. They understand Grova's culture. I'm big on hiring for culture add-on, not culture fit. To me, there's a difference. Just because you fit in someone's culture doesn't mean you're still the right fit, because to me, you have to bring something extra, a little extra to our culture. So call it culture add-on. And yeah, so I forgot the question. Sorry, I started going on a tangent about these other agencies, and I forgot the question.
The question was just who were your original clients? You've pivoted, and what does your ideal client look like now?
Yeah.
Like if you could give a pitch right now to someone who's listening, that would be your ideal customer. In 30 seconds, what would you say to them?
Ooh, 30 seconds. Okay. So we love to work with people who understand the value of marketing. Our clients are the ones that when times gets tough, we're not the first ones you cut, because you understand that we do not treat you like you're a file in a drawer. To us, we're your creative partner. We're a partner in this. And our goal is to get you that ROI. And if we're not doing that, then yes, let's part ways. But even in hard times, we could still get you ROI. And we're not the cheapest, but we're not the most expensive. But we have a very educated, very award-winning team. And you won't be sorry.
Awesome. So I want to switch a little bit, talk about Jim Moran Institute and your involvement in the Jim Moran Institute. You went to the Small Business Executive Program, and then you just went to the conference, their annual conference that they had, and you were keynote or a speaker there. I'm not sure if you're the keynote. But
I was not the keynote, but I was a speaker. But the keynote was awesome.
Speaker there. And in your mind, is the services that JMI offer business owners, what are some of the value points that you as a business owner and a founder have found value in partnering with JMI?
Yeah, so I'm probably Marina's biggest cheerleader. I don't know. She has a lot of cheerleaders, but I'm going to call myself that. I think what Marina has done the last few years to expand JMI in North Florida alone is amazing. And if you're an entrepreneur or a startup or a business owner who is just looking for next steps or how you can grow or learn something new, JMI is it. I was actually introduced to JMI through a client. A client of mine went through it and we became good friends, and they're like, no, G, you have to do this. And I was like, I don't know. It's a time commitment. I'm busy. And to this day, I'm so thankful that this client convinced me to do it, because I just remember thinking, we as CEOs think we got it, right? You don't know what you don't know. And you can't be told what you don't know because you don't know it. So I'm sitting there in these classes, and there were a few workshops where I was like, oh yeah, I got that covered. But the few classes that I learned absolutely something new still sits with me today. And I grew 6 figures a year after taking the small business executive courses, and they're free. The only thing that cost you is time. So even if you've been in business for 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, there's still something to be learned. And just remember this: once you stop learning, you stop leading. So sign up, y'all. Let's get it. Get in there. Get some knowledge.
Love it. And congratulate you on winning JMI 30 of the fastest growing companies in the JMI family. So awesome recognition. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. It still doesn't feel real, if I'm being 100% honest. I was shocked, actually, to learn that we were an honoree. And I know that's crazy to think. And why I was shocked was because 2024 was the hardest year in business for me. The hardest. It was harder than my first year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Oh my gosh. We don't have time to get into it, Mark. We don't have time.
That's fine.
But the biggest thing, and I was lucky because I grew during COVID, and 2023 was our biggest year. And I was like, yeah, we made it. And then 2024 comes, and I have turnover for multiple turnovers for the first time in 4 years. I had that team for a long time. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, wow, I need to hire new people. And it came in domino effect. And I was surprised by that. So I felt like I was constantly hiring in 2024. So I couldn't focus on business development. And also, I'm still very involved in the day-to-day. Not all CEOs probably at 10 years are this involved in the company, but I've tried bringing in agency director. I've tried having a partner, but I have a vision, and unfortunately people just haven't matched that vision. So they just haven't worked out. And not to sound like I'm not like a dictatorship. I promise, guys. I promise I'm not. But I just have a certain way I want things done. And my philosophy is people first. My people first. Clients second. If clients are listening, psych, it's client. No, I'm just kidding. But I just believe that if you put your people first, everything will fall in place. The revenue will come, the clients will come, the culture will come. And in 24, I lost pretty much my whole team, all but one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And again, like I said, it was domino effect. On top of that, we were down from 2023, but I grew so big in 22 and 23. Being down in 24 wasn't a big deal. I think it was 6% down, but it's not crazy. And then on top of that, I had a second business. And that took a lot of my time. So I was not focused on Grova like I should have been, and things slipped through the cracks. And I essentially had to, like, probably about halfway 2024, I just looked up and was like, okay, I got to roll up my sleeves and I got to restructure how I'm running this company, and I got to reprioritize some things. And I dropped the second company, I closed it down. And here we are in 2025. And I'm like, yeah,
All right.
we getting it. We're back. Grova's back. We're human, right? We all make mistakes. Things don't always go according to plan. And I had to learn a really strong lesson in 2024, an almost rehumbling lesson. Yeah.
I totally get where you're coming from. Being the founder of Red Eye, I have many learning points and things like that. I tell people that I have a $250,000 MBA in ingress egress. That was a huge mistake with one of my locations, that just how important for a coffee shop for people to be able to get in and out really quickly. I totally underestimated that, and it cost us a lot of money. But I got quite an education. I'm overeducated in that now. So how important it is. And I held on to that store for so long because I'm like, surely I can convince people that an extra 10 seconds and a few extra turns is not a big deal because our product was worth it. Our brand is worth it and everything. And I worked so hard against the tide, and finally the tide won. And it was a painful experience, and it was a public, when you shut down a store publicly, it's painful and it's embarrassing. But I learned from it, definitely.
Yeah. Are you allowed to say where the store was located, or you don't want to? Sorry, I put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's public. Everybody knows it was going to be our flagship store. It was in Bannerman Crossings.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
us, Red Eye and Blue Halo, were the first ones in to sign a lease before even the ground was broken. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know enough I just figured where I selected our location was nearest Bannerman. Mm-hmm. And I just assumed that there was going to be an easy entrance in from Bannerman, which in the final design, there wasn't. It's nobody's fault but my own. I put my store probably in the worst spot. When I had first choice, I thought it was in the best spot. And for people to come in, I was thinking, okay, you're leaving Killarn area and you'll just want to come off Bannerman and go right into our store, pick up your coffee and go to work. What actually happened, how the complex was designed, was you had to go through the roundabout at Bannerman, make a right, and then go through another roundabout, and then make another right, and then a left. And it was just too inconvenient for people. And I would listen to them and talk to my customers, and it was just, I really thought, like, arrogantly, like I'd built this brand in Midtown and had another location at the hospital, and had a location at Capital City across from Tom Brown Park. And I thought, okay, this is going to be our flagship store. We got this brand that's popping in Tallahassee. And I thought, you know what? People see the Red Eye Frog, and we're going to be in this great complex, which it is a great complex. And mm-hmm. I really just located my store in the worst place for what it is in the complex.
Which I find a little interesting because the Midtown space doesn't have ample parking.
No, it doesn't. But I think that Ed Murray did such a great job of creating a sense of place in Midtown that people go there, and I think it's expectations too, right? That you're in Midtown, there's not a lot of parking, so you're not going to be able to get in and out really quickly. And I think it's just expectation is different. One thing that people did all the time at Midtown and still do, I mean, I don't own it anymore, but they would pull into the parking lot, just call ahead, or now they have an app, and just stop in front of the store, run in and run out, and then get back onto Thomasville Road.
Gotcha.
And go into downtown. And so it's just different. And It was a very humbling experience because I really thought, wow, at the time there wasn't another coffee shop up there, that there's a lot of people that live up there. And the only other coffee shop was Dunkin' Donuts. And I just thought, if you're going to pick between Dunkin' Donuts and Red Eye, obviously you're going to pick. But Dunkin' Donuts, they had a drive through, easy ingress, egress, and our store would be not very busy, and I would be leaving and I would see like lines in the drive-thru at Dunkin' Donuts, and I was like, surely I can figure this out, but I never could figure it out. It was tough. It was very tough.
I hate to hear that, but as CEOs, we get lessons learned, right? We just got to chalk it up as lessons learned. But
yeah, it was a good education. When I speak with business owners now, especially business owners who have brick and mortar and they're faced with closing a store, one thing I always remind them is, I forget what year it was, I think it was around 10 years ago, Starbucks closed 650 stores in 1 year. And actually Starbucks is in the process of closing a bunch of stores. It's part of the process as well. Even companies that are globally successful have to close stores sometimes. And I think I was just too connected with the brand, and I wanted it to work so bad, especially that location, because it's near my house. That's my neighborhood, and I wanted to have a presence there. And I held on too long and eventually had to make the decision. But again, I call it an education. It was way too expensive of an education, but that was my own fault. And I think it had multiple factors. Just we were new, like there wasn't any other businesses in there when we went in there except Blue Halo. And now it's a thriving complex and things. So I think the dynamics are different as well now. So it's just different. And I'm not happy that I had to close it, but I am happy with the lessons that I learned and that I've helped other entrepreneurs not make the same mistake that I made with the Bannerman store, the Red Eye Bannerman store.
Yeah, I completely understand. And I think that's why winning or being honored with the JMI 30 is, I can't think of a word, but surreal because we grew so much in 22 and 23 and even in 25 that 24 didn't matter. And I think that's why I'm still shocked, but why that award is more special, for lack of a better term, because even though we had one bad year, it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and I think too, like looking at the other businesses that are on that list, it makes you really like, okay, I'm in really good company here. There's some fantastic businesses like Tallulah and others that are on that list that you're on, and that's real good company to be mentioned in the same sentence with.
Yeah, everyone who was awarded, I can tell, worked really hard because I got to meet a lot of the people at the conference and the award ceremony, and it was nothing but smiles and everyone's super proud. And like I said, I was actually excited because I actually won Q's 50 a couple years ago, and my dad was sick at the time, so my parents couldn't make the trip, but they were able to make the trip for JMI 30, and so that even made it more special too.
That's awesome. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. So I like to close the podcast always asking a question. You've actually answered this question before when you were previously on, but I'm going to ask you again. Maybe you have something new. So the question is, if you could go back 10 years before you started Grova and you were allowed to tell yourself one thing, what is the one thing that you would tell yourself before you started Grova?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure last time I said tribe, find your tribe.
Okay.
But this time I'm going to talk about one piece of advice I wish when I first started would be surrounded by mental health and finding your center, your ground, your why. Being full-fledged, unapologetic on your why. And when times get tough, remember that why. And when things don't go your way, remember that why. When someone tells you can't do something, remember that why. And I think if you're grounded and centered with that why, that will overall help your mental health when situations don't go according to plan. And you stop pointing the finger at yourself. And because I think again, if we're not in the right mental space, we get hung up on the negatives and pointing your finger at yourself and like, why couldn't I have done this? Or why didn't I do this different? Or why didn't I listen to this person? Or whatever it is. But if you're comfortable with failure, I think that is a really good balance, because you can't learn lessons without failure.
No, you can't.
Yeah. And if you can be comfortable with failure, understand your why, and leave space in your day-to-day for mental health, I think that'll make a world of difference as an entrepreneur.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for just sharing about your journey and just your wisdom that you've learned throughout just about 10 years. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another amazing episode of the InNOLEvation Mindset podcast, powered by the Jim Moran College of Entrepreneurship. Hey, if you like this episode, be sure to hit and be sure to subscribe so you never miss another amazing episode. And finally, we love comments. We answer every single one. So drop us a comment and tell us what you think. We'll see you next time.